The desert stretched endless beneath the blazing sun, a land painted in shades of gold and rust. Heat shimmered above the horizon, blurring the line between earth and sky. Not a bird cried, not a breeze stirred, only the steady rhythm of hooves, and the loyal patting of paws broke the silence of the wasteland. A lone cowboy rode slow across the trail, hat brim pulled low, shadows carving lines across his weathered face. At his side trotted a rangy dog, a mottled mix of grit and loyalty, tongue lolling yet eyes sharp. They had ridden this way 100 times to wanderers chasing no map, bound only to each other. But fate has a habit of hiding in the dust. The dog stopped suddenly, ears pricked, tail stiff. With a sharp bark he broke into a sprint, darting ahead through the dunes. The cowboy reined in his horse, watching with a frown as his partner disappeared over a rise. Dust swirled in the dog's wake, and then silence again. He urged his horse forward, wary, until the sight met him. There in the dirt lay a figure, frail, unmoving, a woman sprawled in the scorching sand, her hair tangled, her dress torn, skin pale against the sunburned ground. The dog whinnied softly, circling her as if guarding a treasure too fragile to touch. The cowboy swung down from the saddle, boots crunching on the grit. He knelt beside her, brushing the dust from her face. Her lips trembled, whispering something. Broken, almost lost to the wind, a strange chill slid down his spine. He didn't know her. He'd never seen her before, and yet something in her presence stirred a memory. A promise long buried, now clawing its way back to life. The cowboy was a man of few words, and even fewer ties. Folks in the towns he passed through never knew his name, only that he rode in, filled his canteen, and rode out again before dusk. To them he was a shadow in spurs, a drifter with nothing to anchor him but the trail. Loss had carved silence into him. Years back, the war had taken his brothers, the fever had taken his parents, and the land itself had taken whatever dreams he once held. What remained was grit, a weathered horse, and the dog who never left his side. That dog was no ordinary companion. He listened when no one else did. He guarded the campfire at night, slept light against the coyotes, and greeted the cowboy each dawn with a wag that meant more than any man's promise. The bond between them wasn't spoken, it was bone-deep trust. Sometimes, in the hush of twilight, the cowboy would scratch the dog behind the ears and mutter, "Reckon you're the only soul I can count on." And the dog, in his silence, seemed to agree. But though the cowboy lived, he did not belong. Townsfolk whispered when he rode by, lone, a drifter, man with ghosts in his eyes. Some said he was running from something, others that he was chasing something he'd never find. Either way, no one asked, and he never told. On that day, with the sun high and merciless, the cowboy thought it was just another stretch of empty land. He adjusted his hat, listening to the creak of saddle leather and the steady thud of hooves, but his dog's ears twitched, nose lifted to a scent the man couldn't catch. Then came the bark, sharp, urgent, breaking the still air like a gunshot. The dog bolted ahead, scattering dust. The cowboy frowned, spurred his horse after him. He knew that bark, it wasn't play. It was warning. It was discovery. And whatever the dog had found out there in the dust would change his trail forever. ***. The sun beat down like a hammer, pressing the life from the earth. The cowboy dropped to one knee beside the stranger, dust clinging to his gloves as he brushed grit from her face. Her skin was dry, cracked from thirst, her lips split and trembling as if they'd been chasing words too long unsaid. Her dress, once fine, hung in tatters, snagged by thorns and travel. Strands of dark hair stuck to her cheeks, matted with sweat and sand. She looked like a spirit pulled from the desert itself, but when her eyelids fluttered, he knew she was still clinging to breath. The dog whimpered, circling close, pawing the ground as if urging the cowboy to act. Woman whispering, "Water, please." He slid the canteen from his saddle horn, lifting her head with a care foreign to his rough hands. She drank, weak but desperate, each swallow dragging her back from the edge. "Woman," faintly, they said, "I'd never make it, but I had to try. I had to find him." The cowboy narrowed his eyes. "Man," gruffly. "Find who?" Her gaze flickered toward him, unfocused, searching for something in his face. Woman whispering, "My promised bridegroom." The word struck him harder than a bullet. He froze, heart thudding against his ribs. Promised bride. It couldn't be meant for him. He was no man of promises. Not anymore. For a moment he considered the trail ahead. He could set her down in the shade of a rock, leave her to whatever fate had already claimed her, and ride on. That was the life of a drifter, never tied, never bound. But her hand, frail, trembling, caught his sleeve. Eyes half closed, yet pleading. "Woman," barely audible, "don't leave me." The cowboy swallowed hard. He looked to the horizon, empty and unforgiving, then back to her fragile form. The decision weighed heavy, but it came all the same. He slipped an arm beneath her shoulders, lifting her carefully, steady as if she were made of glass. His voice came low, steady, certain. "Man, you ain't dying out here. Not while I've got a say." And with his dog at his heels, he carried her toward the waiting horse. A stranger bound to him by words that echoed like destiny. The trail back to town stretched long and lonely, cutting across jagged stone and rolling sand. The cowboy rode slow, steady, the woman resting against his chest as the horse picked its way forward. His dog trotted alongside, tongue out, but his eyes never left her. That dog seemed to sense she was something more than a stranger, something tied to his master's fate. Each mile brought her a little strength. Her breathing steadied, her head lifted from his shoulder, and soon she spoke in whispers that turned into words. "Woman, weak but steady, I ran from men who would have caged me. They wanted me married off to a man I never chose." The cowboy tilted his hat against the glare, voice gravel low. "Man, plenty of women get told who they ought to wed, ain't right, but it's common enough." She turned her face to him, eyes shining through exhaustion. "Woman, this wasn't common. They said it was a bargain. I was promised since birth to a man I never met. I thought if I fled far enough, I'd be free." The words made his chest tighten. Promised. The memory stirred like an ember in dying coals. He remembered his father's voice, years back before fever claimed him. "There's a girl, son, a family arrangement. Someday she'll come to you, your promised bride." He had dismissed it as old talk, a relic of tradition in a world that had already taken too much from him. He had never gone looking, never wanted to. Yet here she was dying in the dust until his dog found her man. Muttering low, could be fate's playing a cruel trick. The dog barked once, sharp, as though answering him. The woman lifted her head weakly. "Woman, what did you say?" He hesitated, then spoke. "Man, my folks once told me near the same story. Said I had a bride promised I'd never met. I thought it was nonsense until now." Silence pressed between them, heavy as the heat. Her hand, frail but certain, rested on his arm. "Woman," whispering, "then maybe I was never running away. Maybe I was running to where I was always meant to be." The cowboy looked out across the desert, heart caught between disbelief and wonder. Could this truly be the woman meant for him, or was it desperation speaking? In the dust, he searched her eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt something stir beyond loss and emptiness. Something like hope. But hope in the West was a dangerous thing. It could be a gift or a trap, and as the town's distant rooftops shimmered into view, the cowboy knew one truth. Destiny wasn't waiting quietly. It was riding with him now, and there'd be no turning back. By the time the cowboy rode into town, dusk had settled across the rooftops. Lamps flickered to life, casting long shadows over the dusty street. Folks turned their heads, whispering when they saw him, lonely drifter, never bringing more than dust and silence. But this time was different. Across his saddle lay a woman, pale but breathing, cradled like something precious. His dog trotted proudly ahead, tail wagging as though he'd led them to glory. At the edge of the boardwalk stood Reverend Carter, the old preacher who'd known the cowboy's family since boyhood. His eyes widened as he stepped forward, peering at the woman. "Reverend Carter, merciful Lord, it can't be this girl. This is the one promised to you, son. Your father told me years ago she'd come." The cowboy stiffened, jaw tightening. "Man," gruffly, "you're certain?" The preacher nodded, voice solemn. "Reverend Carter, I'd know her face anywhere. She's the daughter of the family your folks pledged with. She's the bride meant for you." The woman stirred, eyes opening, catching the cowboy's gaze. For the first time since he'd found her, she didn't look lost, she looked safe. "Woman," softly, "then it's true. I was promised to you." Shock rippled through him, followed by disbelief. Then something steadier, acceptance. He didn't ask for this, didn't chase it. Yet here she was, delivered by fate itself. Around them, townsfolk murmured, voices low but carrying. The drifter's bride, found in the dust, destiny's hand. The cowboy held her hand in his, calloused fingers gentle against hers. For the first time in years, he wasn't just a wanderer. He was part of something larger, a promise, a bond, a legend in the making. The cowboy stood tall beside her, not as a man bound by old promises, but as one who had chosen. He looked into her eyes and found no burden, only trust, only the spark of a life worth protecting. "Man," quietly, "you ain't mine by bargain. You're mine because I'll have it no other way." The woman smiled faintly, her hand steady in his. At their feet, the dog stretched out in the dust, tail thumping once as if satisfied his duty was done. Fate's messenger had delivered more than a stranger. He'd brought a bride, a partner, a reason for the drifter to stop running. When morning came, the three rode out together, cowboy, woman, and dog silhouetted against a horizon painted in gold. And as the town watched them fade into the sunset, whispers carried like wind, a legend born from dust, promise, and love.